Today we had our meeting at Panera Bread, which we love. It's where we get to sit and have our discussions and speak inspiration into each other.
We get to hear a lot of really great stories.
We do things that others aren't willing to do. And I love being a great leader. Thanks, Dr. Odom.
And it really makes people know there's always hope.
Stories and questions are the best way to reinforce value. And every business should have stories, no matter what the business is or company is. Because if you're not in the business of impacting people, then I believe that you need to rethink your sole purpose. Because every business, every organization, everything should be about impacting people. So there should always be stories to be told. If you can impact one person, you can impact many people. If you can impact many people, they can impact many people, and you could actually have a big, big, big change in the world around you. And it's all about what you focus on, and you have to be intentional with it. Stories are really good at reinforcing value because they do two things. They lead to collaborative action, and because they give the audience an experience. Stories lead to collaborative action. The whole purpose of communicating with somebody or telling somebody something is because you want them to do something with whatever you say. You want them to at least remember it at the bare minimum. You want them to use it. You want them to apply it. You want them to change the way they think, or something. You have a purpose for telling them something. What you don't want to do is you don't want to tell somebody something and then it just bounce off. It doesn't matter. Like you say it and then 5 seconds later it's gone. What's the point? So stories lead to collaborative action. So that means we're both working together to get to the same thing, which is I'm the person that's telling somebody something, so I'm actively doing that. The other person actively takes it in. They use it. They remember it. It changes them. It impacts them. It does something, whatever the purpose of what you're saying is. So stories lead to collaborative action, which is the opposite of saying something and it bouncing off there. Okay, so if you say something, you want it to stick, and stories are a good way to have that happen. Second thing stories do is they give the audience an experience. And that's important because people don't remember facts very well. People remember experiences very, very well. One reason why that is if you do a functional MRI, they did this on people, which is like if you ever heard seen something like the person's brain, the computer screen with the MRI of someone's brain, and they say it lit up here or turned red here, and you see the colors kind of glowing. If you do one of those tests, which is a functional MRI on somebody, and you use action words in a story, it actually lights up the person who's listening, the part of their brain that makes them move. So it's like they actually did the movement themselves, as they experience it. If you use strong sensory words, it does the same thing. It lights up part of the brain to actually process senses and different taking in senses. So if you tell a story with action words, with strong sensory words, it's like the person is actually experiencing the words that you're saying. And you have to remember, people remember facts very poorly, and they remember experiences very, very well. Everybody's been somewhere where they've had people hit them with statistics and different numbers and how things happen. And truthfully, after you've been on the end of hearing that, or if you're on the other end of telling somebody that, if you ask that person 5 minutes later, or if someone asks you 5 minutes later, what would you said or what did you hear, I don't think that person would remember hardly anything that you just said. How long would it take for them to sit there with a piece of paper with a statistic written on there, studying it before they could actually tell it back to you? It would take some effort because, like I said, humans are not good at remembering facts like that. That's why we write to-do lists and we have to check them 1,000 times because we can't remember what we're supposed to do. But people remember experiences and stories very, very, very well. If you ever hear a story on the news, on the internet, of something that impacts you in a negative way or positive way, something that moves you positively or something that moves you negatively, for me it's always a story about a dog. If I see a dog on Facebook in a video, I click on it immediately. And I can watch that video, or you can watch that video or hear it one time, and you can on demand recall that story instantly. You could tell 500 people that story on call, and you put no studying effort into it. And it's because it's the experience that you felt when you heard the story. So people remember facts poorly and remember experiences very, very well. So that's why stories are so important when you're talking to people, because they reinforce the value that you want to have, and it actually helps them remember the value that you want them to hear. If your objective is to get them to actually remember, use, and apply what you're telling them to, you can't tell them things in a factual way. You have to try to make it a story. It doesn't have to be a long story. It could be a 1 to 2 sentence story, but that helps them remember it. Next week. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me on the journey.